So in the next few seconds, we would like to start. We are 3 minutes into the webinar. I see still people joining to this session. Okay, so here we start. So once again, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for this knowledge sharing session. The reason why I use good morning, afternoon, and evening was we have participants from across the globe. We are overwhelmed with the enthusiastic response to this knowledge sharing session from participants coming from various continents. A big thanks from me and other panelists for this particular session. So once again, let me extend a very warm welcome and seasoned greetings to this knowledge sharing session. My name is Suresha Iyer. I'm Executive Vice President at JMR Infotech. We at JMR Infotech, we are one of the leading technology solution provider for banks and financial institutions with focus on providing core banking solutions as well as risk and compliance solutions. Established in 2007, JMR has delivered more than 175 projects successfully worldwide and is present in more than 30 countries across 5 continents. In association with BPPL, I'm delighted to extend a very warm welcome to all of you again for this knowledge sharing session. In fact, we were debating as to how to go about this important area. So this entire program is essentially designed to help our fellow bankers across the globe understand the intricacies of Basel III, which is eventually moving towards Basel IV. Towards this, I have very important speakers. Next slide, please. Srinivas, next slide. Yeah. So let me introduce my fellow panelists for today's session. So I'm privileged to introduce Mr. V. Kannan. He's a former chairman and managing director of Vijaya Bank. He comes with over 4 decades of industry experience. He's currently on the board of several companies, and he's also an advisor in the risk management area. I'm equally privileged and happy to introduce another well-known figure in the area of risk management, Madam Shashikala Ramachandra. She is retired general manager and CRO of one of the leading banks in India. She also comes with nearly 4 decades of industry experience. She is an advisor and a well-known speaker in various global forums on risk management. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah. So what we thought was in this very first session, we would like to focus on 3 key areas. First, we will spend a little bit of time on setting the context, followed by Mr. Kannan outlining a CEO's perspective on the risk management area. It will be followed by Madam Shashikala's in-depth analysis of the Basel III and the post-crisis reforms, which are popularly known as Basel IV. The idea is to share our thoughts and experiences on various opportunities and challenges around Basel IV. So what we believe is managing risk efficiently creates opportunity, and opportunity creates value, and creating value increases stakeholders' wealth. So with this backdrop, next slide, please. Yeah. So let me quickly share what we feel about the entire gamut of risk management in the past and where we are today as we look forward to the coming couple of years, which are crucial in this Basel journey. So in the past, the entire risk management was seen as more of a CRO's responsibility, looking at capturing and reporting various types of risk, coming up with mitigation strategies, and focusing mainly on the limited regulatory perspective for the overall risk management. Today, this entire approach has transformed. Today, it is more of a portfolio approach requiring razor-sharp focus on managing various aspects of risk. Optimization is a keyword or a buzzword for CROs today. And another interesting development is the risk management strategy is very, very closely linked to the business strategy of the bank. Today, we are seeing a technology-led hyperconnection with the banking environment transforming itself from traditional banking to digital banking space. So this is posing newer challenges, requiring newer risk management strategies and tools. Today, the pleasant thing that has happened is risk management is no longer just CRO's agenda, it is board's agenda. In the sense, everyone's responsibility is clearly carved out to ensure bank is safe. Next slide, please. So with this background, let me invite Mr. Kannan to give his perspective on the overall risk management challenges banks are facing today. Mr. Kannan, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Suresha, for setting the context and rightly telling about the challenges and opportunities for our banking friends. Greetings to all of you, all bankers from across the globe. Banking has always been about taking risks. We bankers have always taken a reasonable risk and have operated on the principle of risk-reward concept. We no longer look at return on capital. We are always focused on risk-adjusted return on capital. Now, as bankers, we have actually embarked on identification and mitigation of risk as early as 1988 with Basel I. And we have come a long way in the last 32 years with Basel guidelines. That is, in simple words, Basel has been a journey and is still not a destination. Even today, we are still talking about demystification of Basel guidelines. Not only the journey continues and the mystery also continues. Now, friends, with Basel III, we have always been concentrating on the numerator of the capital adequacy. But with Basel IV, the focus has now shifted to the denominator. I mean, the risk-weighted assets in Basel IV revises all the approaches for credit, market risk, and operational risk. In these last 32 years, the bankers have also seen many challenges and crises hitting the financial system, including the current pandemic. And with the world becoming flat and each and every country trying to integrate their financial system with that of the global economy, the digitalization that is taking place, exponential growth in volumes of business, complexity of transactions, and added to that is the crypto assets coming into operation. Now, it is imperative that as bankers, we reinforce the process of identification and measurement, mitigation, and maintaining capital adequacy. Simultaneously, realign our products and services to stay ahead in the competition. We are here today from different geographies with different business models, with different ownerships and bankers in different stages of Basel journey. Some of us are towards the end of Basel II. Some of us are halfway through Basel III, trying to look at Basel IV. The journey has to continue. There is no doubt about that. And now the immediate destination and guidance has to be Basel IV only. Now, implementation of Basel IV calls for only not the CRO, but a coordinated effort and uniformity of thought amongst the business verticals, the data team, the technical team, the compliance team, the reporting team, and of course, the project management team. All of them have to have the uniformity of thought with the blessings of the CEO who is actually driving the business of the bank. Unless we create a common understanding amongst all the stakeholders about the objectives, Basel IV implementation and the journey will always remain a challenge rather than a business opportunity. Now, this webinar series is an effort to bring in the practitioners who have been at the helm of affairs of banks in implementing Basel guidelines for over a decade in large-sized banks with various business verticals to share their experience. As you listen to our experts, it is possible that you may have your organization specific hurdles and problems which comes to your mind for which you may be looking for a solution. Please visit our Q&A portal on baselpractitioners.com for a proper guidance on your organization specific problems. Now with this, I would like to invite our expert, Srimati Sashikala Ramachandra, who has been a general manager and chief risk officer of a large public sector banks with various business verticals to share her experience. Thank you, and over to you, madam.
Well, I just want to greet everybody a big hello for having joined this webinar. Firstly, let me thank Mr. Suresha and Mr. Kannan for the introduction and setting the context for this webinar. So actually, the task given to me is quite challenging as it is, because to cover the post-crisis reforms in 30 minutes, that's a very big challenge, for which I think to doing justice is going to be very difficult. So I have actually tried to, split it into 4 broad lines, where I'll be talking about introduction is definitely necessary to set the context for the presentation itself. Because I mean, I know it's going to be a mixed group that is going to listen to this webinar. Some may be very adapted person and some would be at various levels of understanding. So I beg the pardon for being too basic, if at all it's so. So the broad lines that I'm talking about, I'm going to talk about the introduction, evolution, the key reforms, that transition from Basel 2, 3, and to 4, and the adoption timelines.
So the other topics what Madam would like to cover is, other than the introduction, she wants to actually give a perspective on how the new challenges like the Basel IV, it is impacting the capital and RWA across the jurisdictions, across the banks, across the different portfolios of the bank. That is the second agenda item. And the third and fourth are the real challenges in adopting these guidelines in the bank level and what bank actually has to do it. Means, okay, guidelines are being published, but how bank actually take the next steps. So that's how I think the entire agenda has been drafted. Yes, madam.
So when I talk about the evolution, I'm going to the next slide. As we all know, the evolution of Basel guidelines goes back to 1974. And 1974, about the Hearst Bank failure was the beginning, when the settlement risk was addressed. Now, subsequently, the BCBS had a deeper discussion and they wanted to address the credit risk and brought about Basel guidelines to address credit risk and to prescribe capital ratio. Now here, the sensitivity and granularity was minimal and it was based on the balance sheet asset classifications. In 1996, the market risk guidelines were added. And then in 2006, the Basel II guidelines with the 3-pillar definition came in.
So if you actually see the evolution of the Basel guidelines, we have been hearing, I think, multiple versions of Basel 1, 2, 3, and 4. So what is actually, I think, happening? Why I think the BCBS is actually giving multiple guidelines on the same thing, right? I think finally, if you look at the guidelines, they are talking about how to identify the risk, how to measure the risk. So that's what is actually they're saying. But why multiple versions of the guidelines? If we actually see the real crux of the guidelines, what they are actually doing is they're actually increasing the sensitivity of the risk measurement. That's what actually they are seeing it. If you look at the Basel 1, they focused only on the credit risk part. That too, the granularity is at a balance sheet level granularity. Then moving on to Basel 2, then they brought the picture of the 3 pillars: credit risk, market risk, and operational risk. And the sensitivity has actually increased, means from balance sheet perspective to the asset class level. I think that is the first time I think we have been hearing about the Basel asset class in Basel 2. Then we moved on to the Basel 3. In the Basel 3, what actually, because of the 2008 crisis, wherein I think we actually seen the liquidity crisis. So they brought in the liquidity aspect also. Other than that, in Basel 3, the quality of capital. We all know that I think the BCBS has actually mandated 8% capital. I think you all know, I think especially the big banks, they actually maintain only 2% of the equity capital. So they focused on even the quality and quantity of capital besides the liquidity. That's what is being addressed in Basel 3. Then moving on to the Basel 4. Now, in the Basel 4, what is being addressed is that they are actually increasing the risk sensitivity, especially on the RWA. And you will be actually, while I think moving on to the slides, you will understand they're actually aligning the standardized approaches and the IRB approaches, means they're putting a lot of restrictions on usage of the model-based approaches and increasing the sensitivity of the standardized approach. So going forward, the more and more, I think the standardized approach is the way forward. That's what is at a very high level, the evolution. Maybe I think even we can't forget about the BCBS 239 guidelines, which is actually focusing on the risk aggregation. So that is the biggest challenge, which actually makes a mandate establishing the data lineage from the SOR to the reporting cell level. That's how I think I can actually visualize the entire evolution of the Basel guidelines.
Yeah, you are right, Srini. So the Basel 4 further, they are talking about addressing the variability and comparability of capital ratios across banks. And this was one reason why the post-crisis reforms were thought of. And adding to that was the capital flows prescribed for those banks which are under advanced approaches. Now, going to slide 4, to talk about the key reforms. Now, the question always arises why these many guidelines are there. What is the rationale? Constantly updating the guideline. We talk about Basel when then comes to 2.5, 3, 4. What is the reason? Now, key changes that are bringing, each version is bringing some key changes. So how it is affecting us? Now, BCBS has been, they are having a constant watch on adoption of guidelines globally, and also they are also watching the efficacy and effectiveness of these guidelines, because adoption of standards has been at various levels in various geographies. And the main requirement is whether the loss absorption capacity is met. That is a basic requirement of any of the Basel guidelines. Now, if we talk about Basel 2, 3, and 4, now the capital ratio formula remaining the same. The Basel 2 actually addressed the denominator. That was the RWAs of credit, market, and operas. Now coming to Basel 3, the focus was on the numerator. Here the quality of capital was stressed upon. And then they came out with the T1 and T2, the Tier 1, common equity Tier 1, to absorb losses of going concern, and the Tier 2 to absorb losses of gone concern, and plus the liquidity buffers. Now the additions were the capital conservation buffer for using on a rainy day, the counter-cyclical buffer for the cooling credit cycle period, and the SIFI buffer, the systemically important financial institutions buffer for covering risk for the larger institutions who may have an effect on the system itself and a stress on leverage and liquidity. So whereas Basel IV, when we come to Basel IV, we find that now again the denominator is addressed. Here again, because of the objective of addressing the variability in RWA computations and improving comparability, so the denominator is addressed and RWA, the method of computation and the RWA prescriptions have been modified. So here pillar 1 stands modified to the extent of improved sensitivity under credit and op risk, and the standardized approaches are all modified into the different methodologies. And in case of operational risk, the advanced measurement approach has been done away with. And in case of market risk, the FRTB guidelines have been issued. And this is going to be a sensitivity-based approach and with the expected shortfall approach. Now, this slide that you are seeing here, we have given all the references of BCBS papers which matter to us for moving into the Basel IV. So, and that is going to be very important. So those interested can definitely go through this. And of course, in the subsequent webinars, we will also deep dive into some of these aspects, because this is just, we are giving a flavor of Basel IV key reforms in the given 30 minutes. So, but the deep dive can happen later in the subsequent webinars. So under pillar 2, the prudential regulations are strengthened here. And so regulatory overlay of buffers, those come into the picture in this Basel IV guidelines. Now, pillar 3, the disclosures. Now, if we see the disclosures under pillar 3, they were very objective. And given the left side of the table shows what were all the DF tables that was that held importance under Basel III disclosures. But under Basel IV, it's more prescriptive. And moving forward with the disclosures, the prescription also says that every number has to be tallied to the balance sheet numbers. And this actually is a step towards IFRS 2, because IFRS, the balance sheet which are going to be coming under the IFRS guidelines will have to be aligned now. This was actually the Financial Stability Board was working under this, on this, and now it has come in the form of post-crisis reforms. So going to the next slide. Now here, there's a snapshot given and Basel 2, 3, and 4. So this slide has been very nicely done by my colleague, and it has everything that you would like to see as a bird's view of all the 3 metrics. Now the key prudential metrics, the components, the subcomponents, everything is here in this slide. Now different banks are required to comply with different set of guidelines at any point of time. Now some banks are in Basel II, some in Basel III, and now the need is to migrate to Basel IV. But let us be aware, the regulator actually expects that gradually all banks move to the Basel IV guidelines. Now actually Basel IV, as my colleague also said, it's a term used by the practitioner, but it's definitely in BCBS terms, it's a post-crisis reforms. So, but for ease of talking, we always say move to Basel IV. So moving to Basel IV has become the need of the regulator as of now, so that all banks are in the same page and comparability will be much better. Now, the overview that this chart is giving, this is based on 3 guidelines, and based on 3 guidelines of 2, 3, and 4. And it is based on the business model. If you know your business model, the asset composition of the bank, and the current level of adoption of BCBS guidelines, banks now, they know how far you have reached. Each bank knows how far you have reached and where do you stand now. So this gives you where additional prescriptions are relevant to you, where all the modifications are relevant to your bank, and where the existing guidelines needs to be addressed to be in conformity with Basel IV. Now, without going into each and every metric, because most of it is self-explanatory, but still, I'd like to say, bring your attention to a few things here. Now major changes in Basel IV can be the can be what I would like to say as of now. Now, revised approaches. This is prescribed for credit risk, operational risk, and market risk under Basel IV. And the major change in credit risk is the exposure cut, beyond which the RWA shall be based on regulatory numbers, and below which the corporate asset class can be under IRB approach. Certain asset classes of residential mortgage, real estate, the RWA is prescribed based on LTV ratio. Now, this is just an overall picture, and there's much more into it for deep dive. Now, exposure to corporates. Now here, introduction of risk weights for small and medium-sized enterprise and investments is part of Basel IV, the additional guidelines given. And in case of just a few, I am just stating here, not all, because it's quite an exhaustive document. Now, exposure to covered bonds. New risk weights for rated and unrated exposure is prescribed. And in case of exposure to project finance, object and commodity finance, the rating was always a question. So now here, risk weights for rated exposure, this will follow the general corporates where RWA is given. And the 3 subcategories of specialized lending is also introduced. So granularity has improved because here generally it is all a new project and you only have the projections. You don't have much of the actuals, especially if it is going to be an SPV type of business. Now, coming to the residential real estate exposure, risk weights will vary based on the LTV ratio of the mortgage to replace a flat weighting. That was 35% as prescribed earlier. But what I can say is each regulator in various geographies, they have prescribed sometimes more stringent risk weights. So I'm referring only to the PCBS common to all geographies, but not the independent regulators. Now, actually in Basel IV, so earlier what was 35% now will range from 20 to 70%. And exposure to commercial real estate. Now, LTV ratio approach again comes to picture here. Now, this is replacing a flat weighting of 100% earlier. So under Basel IV, now it is going to be 2 categories, the income producing real estate and the other real estate, and the RWA given ranges from 30 to 150%. And the subordinated debts and equity, existing flat risk weight of 100 or 250 will be replaced by 150%. So these are the major impactful RWAs which I have just picked up for this, but otherwise it's quite a big chart that you can definitely go through in the December 17 guidelines. Now entire standards, it's quite granular assets. So each bank, knowing where they stand, they can always find out what is going to impact them. Now the committee further set the classification of instruments. Now in market risk, the trading book and the banking book. Now this is based on liquidity of instruments and the ability to value them on daily basis. These are the 2 major criteria, but there are several sub-criteria that is given by the document where the bank needs to classify what instrument comes under trading book and what comes under banking book. And they also say, like initially, ab initio, once you classify that, there cannot be any redesignation to take capital benefit. So this is one challenge that the banks have to be careful about while actually classifying it as trading or banking book. Now, what after classification? The guidelines say once you classify it as a banking or trading book, you must calculate the total capital charge before the classification and after the classification. And that difference that you get, that will be imposed as a disclosed Pillar 1 capital surcharge. So banks need to be careful while doing this exercise because one thing is can't take a capital benefit. And secondly, if at all the disclosed Pillar 1 capital is impacted negatively, it will be again a challenge. Now, unlisted equity exposures. these are going to attract 400%. So those having investment portfolio have to watch out for this, and other equity exposures to 50%. And coming to the off-balance sheet items, 100% CCF for undrawn commitments. Earlier, what it was, before Basel IV, it has been 20% and 50% as per BCB's guidelines earlier. And that was because 20% for up to 1 year commitment, and more than 1 year, it was 50%. Now that benefit is not available. Everything will go for 100% CCF. And there is another category here, and that is the unconditionally cancelable clause. Wherever you have for such commitments, the bank have to keep up. As of now, the benefit is available to have a 0%. But Basel IV guideline says, irrespective of whether you have the UCC class or not, you need to have a 10% CCF. Now, in case of OPRIS, the standardized approach methodology is revised. Now, the revision says earlier it was just the business lines and the loss, but now there is a business indicator coefficient that is prescribed based on the scale of operations. And there's one more component, that is the internal loss estimation component. And in fact, for this loss estimation, the requirement they say is 10 years of past data, or at least 5 years. That is how the wordings are there in the BCBS document explaining this OPRIS. So this is going to be another challenge, because having a loss estimation of OPRIS events for the past 5 years, whether the banks have, that is the question. And coming to market risk methodology, as I said, it will be the FRTB sensitivity-based approach or expected shortfall approach. And apart from this, there are certain modifications also in the approach for counterparty credit risk and default risk, which will now be under standardized approach, and credit valuation adjustment, which will be under the basic approaches. So moving to slide 6, so next slide, please. So status of implementation of these guidelines. Now, if you see this slide, there are some geographies where the level of adoption has been given, but I just want the group 2 participants to just focus on the BCBS deadline, because that is more relevant when we are talking about a global group and not a particular regulator. So final Basel IV guidelines have been published in December 17. And further revisions have happened. And further revisions on the counterparty credit risk, the credit value adjustment, FRTB, up till 2020 guidelines were being given. Now, if we concentrate on the deadlines given by BCBS, we observe that the major revisions of approaches, the different approaches, revised approaches to computation of capital, they need to be addressed by 2023 January. Now, there are other add-ons, the CCB, the counter-cyclical buffer, the capital conservation buffer, the counterparty credit risk, the total loss absorption capacity, securitization framework, IRBB, and liquidity standards of LCR and NSFR, large exposure framework. These all the deadlines are over, but still some geographies are, they all have not in conformity with the deadline, and some are in the various stages of adopting these guidelines. So ultimately, of course, everybody will fall in line, but this probably is going to be taking little time depending on the complexity of the banks in a particular geography. Next slide, please. So now we'll just have a view on the impact assessment. Now this question is certain to arise. Once you say Basel IV, so the question will be, how will it impact my capital? Now, how does it impact? To say that it's very difficult, because computation and of a geography or globally is going to be difficult. So what we have done is taken a reference. This is a EBA study. This is of 2018, of course. But of course, the numbers here will definitely give idea of what could be the impact for the particular bank that you are representing. Now, the first chart here, the overview of revised RWA. Now, as you can see, the impact is minimal in medium and small size banks, whereas the large bank, the GSIB bank, it's quite high. That is mainly because these banks, large banks, are already in IRB in the European region, and the output floor prescribed in the post-crisis reforms would have a comparatively higher impact here. So if you see the small banks, it is just nothing. And in the medium banks, there is a slight variation that has happened. Of course, the portfolio composition may also be a likely contributor for higher capital, depending on what sort of portfolio that they are having in their asset side. Now, the chart 2, the one the beside here, percentage change. Now here, this is indicating what could be the percentage change in the RWA that is possible if Basel IV is adopted. So again, this is a representative data, but probably indicating certain idea of what would be the impact. So here also we see, if you concentrate on the RWA percentage at the particular column of RWA, you can see that the delta for GSIBs, it is at 20.7%. Now, that is quite high. But what about large banks? Large banks, it's at 15.6%, and the medium banks at 11.5%, and the least impact is in the small banks, where 5.6% of the RWA will be the delta that you can see. So that is the increase that can be expected by the bank size. Now, the third chart down below here. Now, this is indicating impact of regulatory changes. This is based on the asset category and the portfolio composition. So if you know your business model and if you know your composition of asset classes, you can very well know the probable level of impact. Now, higher the residential mortgages and corporate asset classes, the delta can be expected to be higher. Now, especially for banks under IRB approach, the capital floor of maintaining 72.5% of standardized approach RWA, which will gradually increase to 100% until full implementation. This is going to be a significant impact. So these are some of these. There's an indicative impact assessment. So as I said, it's just giving you an idea. So it may be of EBA. The next slide, please. So now we'll go for the challenges that the bank face. Now, anything is a challenge, but to meet the challenge is actually the real crux of the issue and what gives us satisfaction ultimately. So banks face many different challenges. So due to initiation of this Basel IV credit risk framework, the challenges are going to be little higher. Now we can assess this under 4 dimensions. So we are going to talk about it in the sense of a business model, the strategic implications, the long-term strategy, the operational challenges, and the technological challenges. Now, impact of business model and portfolio composition. This has been referred in my earlier slide also. But what else can we talk about the business model? Now, bank, with a view to optimize capital, they will need to think of impact on account of mortgage-based lending, the residential mortgage, because impact of LTVs is going to increase the RWAs in this particular category. And impact of open commitment lines, where unconditional cancelable clause is no more relevant, not much relevant also, to reduce RWAs, and increase in RWA for off-balance sheet. So this portfolio has to be thoroughly rechecked by a bank to know what would be the impact and what challenges may be faced. Now, business model and processes, they may require a re-engineering once you do the analysis. And this has to be done to make it more profitable by optimizing capital and allocating the business lines. Now, some of the banks, you see, they don't have a diversified portfolio. They need to think of diversifying the portfolio, and they need to think of rebalancing the existing portfolio also. So we have to first understand the new rules, because it's going to cost. The rising cost may decrease the profitability, and the capital may not get freed so easily. Now, cost of implementing new framework is the first challenge. However, there is a significant optimization that can be done to mitigate this. So there's an opportunity also. It's not just a challenge. Now, strategic implication. Now we are talking about what sort of a strategic implication can happen. Now, with specific reference to IRB banks, what is the challenge that we can say? Now, this is relevant, strategic implication is relevant to IRB because they do have state-of-art models. So that models will have to be scaled down. One thing is they'll have to compute as per AIRB or FIRB, but scaling down their models will also be a task that they have to undertake because they are no longer relevant. And asset classes of banks, FIs, large and mid corporates, equities. So these do not have much relevance now under AIRB because of the revised RWA guidelines. And equities, again, is going to be a different game. And AMA scrapping is again going to be some sort of a challenge for them to come out of it and then come back to the standardized revised approaches. So entire process flow in computation of these risk components, yes, this will have to be modified. And this definitely poses a very huge technological challenges because further involves cost and effort. And business verticals, they have to have a clear understanding of the revision and the target specified by the strategy and the capital allocated for each vertical. So the business verticals have to understand why that sort of a rebalancing is happening and why that sort of a portfolio concentration changes will happen. Because without understanding that by all the verticals, it's going to be a challenge. And like Mr. Kannan was saying, it will be a CEO's headache to start convincing everyone. And the top management should be closely involved. So another challenge is of data. Now, to conform to the revised approaches, lot of granular data will be required, more than what it was under Basel III. So operationally, both IRB and non-IRB, they have to address the challenges. They have to review policies, they have to review processes, the data gaps, and enabling identifiers for proper asset classification based on LTVs, cash flow dependencies, etc., to see that proper categorization happens and proper RWA output is available. Now, IRB will have to undertake a parallel run. So this is for IRB banks. Because of the capital flow, they'll have to do both the runs. Now, adoption of Basel IV will also this result in increase in IT infrastructure, reworking of business rules in the application, modifying the design, facilitating the gap data required for output into the system, because ultimately it is no manual intervention job. And of course, the IT part of it will be covered by my colleague in the subsequent webinars in detail. So not dwelling too much into these challenges because it's going to be a separate topic by itself. Now, at a high level, now we can discuss the steps bank needs to initiate so that these guidelines can be adopted in toto effectively and efficiently, and capital optimization can be achieved so that there's no too much hit on the bottom line. So that is the road ahead that is to be taken after meeting these challenges. Now coming to the next slide, we are talking about the adoption steps. Now, if you see the chart, the lines are going helter-skelter. So it is going to be too many sources, too many ways of doing it. And finally, the output also will come out very differently. Now, to address this and make it into a straight-through processing, straight line. So now, before I talk about the demystification of guidelines, which is the first step in the slide, I would like to bring to your attention that what is more important. The very first step that I should say is risk governance and data governance structure. This needs to be in place in the bank. Now, if these two governance structures are strong and fortified, now timely approvals and direction to implementation has to come from this governance structure. So that is very important to have to be in place. And first and foremost, constitute a project team or a steering committee with representation from all business verticals. The business verticals: planning, finance, risk, compliance, IT, whoever. But the challenge is not bringing them into a room. The challenge is making them understand the common goal that all have to pursue. As Mr. Kannan was saying, it is not just the CRO's job, but it is the job of each and every vertical head and the entire chain from the top management to the grassroots. So that understanding and it's sort of a risk culture which has to be imbibed in the organization to make this a success. So the guidelines, yes, one needs to understand the guidelines, review the policies, processes, so that it is in conformity with the Basel IV guidelines. And for these modifications or the changes to conform with the Basel IV guidelines, you have to seek approval of the risk committee of the board and keep top management informed every step taken in the implementation. So participative, it's a participative exercise and not the risk management only exercise. And you have to arrive at the data requirements for the implementation. So for that, a data gap analysis, a thorough data gap analysis needs to be in place, and the data gaps have to be brought into the system. If not from the source system, there had to be any other way of bringing it into the system so that for the purpose of undertaking the disclosure reporting, everything is in place and the output comes out neat and clean. So technology upgradation, that is one important thing that I spoke about in the last slide also. So that is very much required, because Basel IV cannot definitely run just by the IT infrastructure that you have for Basel III, because the data requirements are going to be huge. And again, if it is going to be a parallel run, it's going to be doubling the effort and doubling the IT infrastructure also. And disclosure and reporting formats, we need to know what is required and map the data points for a meaningful output. So let us remember, each and every step is important to have a smooth implementation. So good teamwork is complete cohesiveness, complete coordination, complete understanding. And everybody should be fixated at the goal of moving to Basel IV. And there can't be any dissent. So only if that is the case, the challenges can be overcome. Challenges are about how these can be met and go for a smooth implementation. So this is a flavor that I have given on the Basel IV post-crisis reforms. So this is just, as I said, the subsequent webinars will be covering much more deep dive, and request you all to take benefit of that. So I hand over to Mr. Suresh for the remarks, concluding remarks.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you all.
Shashikala. Sorry, can you move to the next slide, please? So thanks, Madam Shashikala. You touched upon some very, very interesting aspects. As you very rightly mentioned, a complex topic like what we are staring at, the impending Basel IV requirements, is not an easy task. Especially you touched upon the data-related challenges like risk data aggregation, capital optimization, rebalancing of portfolio. These are all quite intense things. And you very nicely articulated it has to be a team effort. It is not just one team sitting in risk management group, hoping to achieve the end state. It has to be an intense, well-coordinated effort to achieve the end state. With just about some 17 months away, Jan 23 being the timeline suggested, bankers, we fellow bankers have lots of challenges on our plate. And as she very rightly mentioned, this is an initial overview session which we did today, because this is a very complex area. Some of these aspects would be taken forward. There would be a deep dive sessions in the coming weeks where we would like to touch upon some of the key aspects, how to address these challenges, and how to ensure your bank's vision of meeting these goals are achieved. So just to summarize, the focus of this, the new set of guidelines is not just putting a tick marks to meet the compliance requirement. It is only incidental in the journey, whereas the entire focus is on assisting in the decision-making process. As Madam very rightly mentioned, you may have to rebalance your portfolio, optimize the capital charge. So quite a few things are associated in this, while regulatory compliance is incidental. It is absolutely essential to balance and strengthen the risk management policies and processes to align with the new set of guidelines which are staring at everyone. All these things require a good combination of technology tools so that you are able to address data challenges, overcome huge amount of challenges and the computational requirements, and submit your reports on time every time. Next slide, please. So with this brief background, shortly I would like to open the Q&A session. Before that, let me thank each and every one of you for gracing this session. On behalf of JMR and BPPL, I would like to thank all of you for making this into a huge success on a Sunday evening, having over 80 participants from across the globe joining to this session. We feel we are honored. And as I mentioned, this is first in our series. And the next session in this series would be on 31st July at the same time, Saturday, 31st July, where the focus would be on the standardized approach. We will be making a deep dive into standardized approach. And if you have any queries, please feel free to reach to any of the email IDs. And I'll be opening the Q&A session now. For this, my other team members, Srinivas and others too would be joining. We would be happy to answer your questions. Srinivas, can you look at some of the questions already posted, please?
Yes, sir. I think the main question is coming on which portfolios are actually getting impacted on account of the Basel IV. Madam actually has given a good insight in saying that it depends upon, I think, which methodology they are using it. But as per the Basel IV, the main portfolios which are getting impacted, one is the residential mortgage, because there is a clear shift from the current what is the standard risk weighting to LTV based risk weighting. That is one important thing. The second thing is the corporate risk class. So that is another important thing, because in the Basel IV, it is tightly aligned with the advanced approach. Means earlier we need not actually identify the SMEs within the corporate. Now we need to do it. And we need to actually carve out the specialized lending. That is another important thing. So other than these things, what I want to actually inform the entire group is the due diligence. Maybe I think you might be actually maybe not giving that much importance. The due diligence, because whichever jurisdiction they are following the external rating approach, mere rating and aligning the ratings to a risk weight is not going to be the norm in the Basel IV. In the Basel IV, besides actually aligning the risk rating, every bank needs to carry out a due diligence and check whether the risk of that particular counterparty is in sync with the whatever external rating is done. If not, then you need to actually at least one notch above the risk weight you need to actually assign. For example, if a corporate is rated as a AA, but you feel it is not AA, then I think you need to actually maybe I think risk weight it as a single A or even triple A, something like that. Due diligence is very, very important exercise which every bank has to do it. That is one question. So
Yes,
Actually, Srini, I just want to add to what you're saying. In fact, in India, the risk weight for residential mortgages already are quite at a high. It is ranges from 35 to 100%. So in such of those geographies where the regulator has already been very stringent about the risk weights, the impact may not be very bad. It could be there, but it may not be very bad. That's my take on that. Just wanted to add that.
Okay, Mr. Chatterjee want to actually ask a question. Chatterjee, please go ahead.
Hi. So I do have a few questions. I was noting it down. So let me start with it in a descending order, right? So the last point you made that the dependency on the external credit agencies will be reduced, right? But then again, if the bank has to do so much of due diligence, what's the use of taking an external rating at all, right? The bank can have its own in-house thing. Don't you think it becomes redundant?
This is, I think, very interesting question. Maybe I will just explain now. Basel IV has actually given an option for the jurisdiction. First, the central banks need to decide. If you see, even in the Basel III world, India is actually going in the standardized approach based on the external credit rating. Means based on the external credit rating, the risk weight is being assigned. But if you look at within the Basel III itself, in US is actually not advocating any external rating. It is based on banks' internal things within the standardized approach itself. So in the Basel IV, explicitly BCBS is giving this discussion. First, regulator has to decide whether they are going for the external ratings or not. That is first step. In the second step, even if the regulator is adopting the external credit ratings, every individual bank need to carry out the due diligence. That's how I think it's a two-step approach. The BCBS has actually advocated. So we have to wait and see whether RBI is going for the external credit ratings, or they may fall in line with I think no external ratings, only purely internal rating, even within the standardized approach. You have to wait and see. But if it is opted, the two-step approach? First, check with the external rating, then do the due diligence. Both are required. Madam, I think you want to add something.
Yes, because Chatterjee, I think your concern was whether you need to have external rating or not. Henceforth, that's what I felt you wanted to know. But
Right.
in my view, you can't do away with it. Because internal rating, no doubt, the bank itself is doing for its customers. But in case of external rating, you are getting an external view and a larger picture is there. Because the external rating agencies do much more due diligence for the external rating. Of course, there were failures of those ratings. I don't dispute that. But it can be a reference information that the bank can have and not totally doing it, but always take the information with your own thought process and your own intelligence to accept what is there in the external rating. But I feel currently doing away with it may not be the right step.
Right. So that's why due diligence. Yeah, I agree, because in 2008 also it didn't come so much into the effect. I mean, external agencies were in the forefront of that financial crisis also, right? Thank you for that. The other question, can I ask another question?
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Please go
Yeah,
ahead.
go ahead.
Since I have my career started with Basel II, so I've been seeing that in more so in Basel IV, it's moving towards it's giving more priority towards the standardized version of it, right, rather than the IRB version. Should we, in very recent time, should we get that there will be no IRB process at all, and it will be simply a standard process, the standardized approach?
IRB is not rooted out. For some asset classes, you can do it. But why IRB failed, or why it was considered the standardized approach should be given more importance? That is what we need to understand. In the IRB guidelines, method models, if you see, there is a room for, I don't know whether I should use the word manipulations. Because even the economic capital, when you talk about statistics, you need to be really honest to get a realistic output and use it. But if banks don't do that, that is where the question of variability and comparability has arisen. So there's actually the BCBS has done a lot of study on that. There's a paper on that also, why these things happen. So that is where the IRB had to take a back seat, and prescriptiveness has increased in Basel. Srini, if you want to add something.
No, I think why I think Basel IV actually has put a lot of constraints on multiple asset class and even multiple items within the risk management. If you look at, for example, CVA, credit value adjustment, it is the most complex. It is almost as complex as your market risk. So after study, what they have done is wherever models are not good enough to capture the risk, in those asset classes, actually Basel IV has put constraint. They are saying that don't use your models, because this is too complex and you are not actually capturing the required risk. That's how I think they actually brought in a lot of constraints on usage of the IRB or modeled approach on particular asset class. That is first thing. Second thing is, you need to understand, maybe I think if you attend the subsequent sessions, you will understand, they have actually improved the sensitivity of the standardized approach. Now, if you look at the CVS standardized, CVS standardized approach and the market risk, the FRTB, they are almost one and the same. So they increased the sensitivity of standardized approach and put a lot of constraints on the IRB approaches. Finally, they are ensuring that there won't be any too much variability within the risk, whatever is being computed. That's how I think the Basel IV is approaching. I hope that answers your question.
Got it, sir. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, and I will join the other sessions also, so things will get clear. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
So I think few more questions. I think Diaz, I think they asked a very interesting question. Then I think the data quality, governance, GDPR, BCBS 239, and Basel IV, right? Diaz, I think you can actually unmute. Hello.
Yeah, good morning, good evening. Yes, this is my question. This is Luis Diaz. Yes.
Yes.
So I would like to understand the complementarity or the differences between this initiative, Basel IV, and two other initiatives that banks have in their plate, which is BCBS 239 and GDPR. Thank you.
Okay. At least my take I will give it. Basel IV is mainly focusing on reducing the variability of RWA being computed across different banks and different approaches. That is its focus. The data quality, data governance, these are, I think, generic aspects which will continue. Whether Basel IV is there, Basel V is there, that will not actually do away. So the data quality is the biggest challenge all the banks are facing, and this is much beyond the Basel IV, what I can say. And the BCBS 239, yes, it will keep, I think, this is BCBS 239 is a guidance for you, how you actually ensure your the data quality and data lineage from end to end, means from the data point within your source system to the whatever is being reported in a particular report in a particular cell. Can you establish a lineage? That's what I think the data aggregation rules on BCBS 239 is all about. Data governance is a much bigger concept. It is as good as your corporate governance. We always focus on the credit administration, credit governance, fine. But the most important thing is data is the real asset of all the entities, especially the bank entity. So you need to have the governance definitely. So my point is, I think these two are one, data quality, governance, GDPR. These are the general guidance which is being given, and Basel IV is a specific guidance to check the the variability, unwarranted variability between the banks. That's what I feel. Madam, you want to add anything? Okay. Does that answer, Diaz, or you have any?
No, thank you. Thank you very much. Very valuable. Thank you.
Okay. Ashutosh sir, I think you asked UCC clause in the Basel IV. Can you please explain, sir? I think I could not understand that. Sir, can you unmute and discuss that? Is there any use of UCC clause in B?
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, actually, right now I would like to know कि in Basel 3 guideline also in standardized approach, we take an unconditional cancelable clause.
Okay.
And we also show to the regulator that how we have used this UCC. And accordingly, for the unavailed portion, we treat the capital requirement. So when Madam told ki in the Basel 4 for unavailed portion, straight 100% CCF will be applied. Then this UCC clause that we put in a loan agreement, is it required in the time to come, or it can be dropped? That is what my question is.
No, actually, it's better not to drop. At least you are getting now, instead of 0, it is 10%. At least you are saving a 90%.
Okay. It is 10% in that.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, madam. Yeah. Thank you, madam. Thank you.
Mr. Raghu, sir, you have a question. Sir, can you unmute and pose that question, sir? Raghu, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Rini. My question is, as we are evolving towards Basel IV, and what I am thinking is, when the predictability matters less when compared to the due diligence that we need to adopt, and to maintain the right level of risk profile of the customers or the risk appetite of the bank, then what is the relevance of risk modeling teams who are currently busy in developing the models? I am not sure whether they are working right or not. Maybe in every unpredictable scenario they are failing. So that is what we discussed as of now. So when we adopt to this Basel IV guidelines, though, how will their relevance be impacted? So whether they will build only challenger models, or their models will still be relevant? How it will be in future?
Madam, you want to take?
No, my take on this is you can't do away with the risk modeling teams. Though you are not now, those who are in IRB banks will anyway have to have them, and those who are not in IRB also, there is a step that you can take ahead for certain categories. Now, the Basel IV talks about a cutoff exposure of 500 billion, above which you cannot have an internal model. But below that, you are allowed to do. FIRB models are allowed. So for that, you need to have a risk modeling team, and it doesn't end there also. Models are required for several other things. So even for your pillar 2, you need modelers. So you can't do away with the risk modeling team. There is a stress testing model, or the reverse stress testing models, and finally the economic capital. There are several things, and beyond this, if I had to say, IFRS has come into play. There again, the modeling is required. So if at all you are not using the PD, LGD components for computing the expected credit loss, still you have other models to build for, even for IFRS requirements. So I am of the opinion you can't do away with this modeling teams. You need to develop them.
Maybe I think I will give, my perspective. If we can actually understand why BCBS is putting constraints on certain asset classes, then I think we will get the answer very quickly. What they are saying is the current models, they are not in a position to actually capture the risk involved in the complex products. That is the reason they actually put in, a lot of constraints. As the models evolve, these constraints will go away. Final objective of the BCBS or even bank or any regulator, you need to precisely compute, and there should be a consistency across the banks in capturing the risk. As long as that is achieved, those things will be definitely, will continue. So my take is, you need to continue these things, and as the models will evolve and actually has the capability to capture the risk precisely, those restrictions will go away. So that's how it is. You need to look at it. That is one important thing. The second important thing is, if we actually understand the standardized approach, they are saying, for example, if you take the standardized corporate, you are supposed to segregate the unrated exposures of corporate into investment grade, non-investment grade, and some other things. So what they are saying is, finally, you need to segment the portfolio based on the risk. So the final answer is, you need to continue the models, and once the models achieve some consistency across the jurisdictions and across the banks, BCBs is definitely going to lift their the constraints, whatever the currently they have imposed. That's how it is. Does that answer your question, or? Hello? Okay. I have another question, Mr. Prakash Krishnan. Sir, would you like to? Mr. Prakash Krishnan? I can answer, I think, the response. You were asking, can a bank directly implement the Basel III?
Yeah,
good evening, sir. Yes.
It can actually, you can implement as long as your regulator is permitted. I can only say Basel is a prescription to compute your risk. If your regulator is allowing you to do it, I think you can adopt Basel III. And maybe, I think I will give one example. We have been talking about Basel 1, 2, 3, and 4. US has not actually adopted Basel II. I think if you come to US and ask about Basel II, if you are talking, people will be puzzled, because they know only Basel I and Basel III. Basel II has not been adopted with the regulator. So what I can say is, if your regulator is permitting, you can adopt.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you for your wonderful answer. Thank you.
Any more questions? Okay. Yeah. How close to the post? Close the post. Shastri sir, you have not understood your question. Shastri sir, how close the post-crisis Basel III guidelines and IFR guidelines converge? Absolutely, sir. I think now the convergence is happening, because even at the time of implementation of these solutions also, the provision amount, I think whatever is being computed as a part of your IFRS 9 need to be actually taken into your, the capital calculations. Provision is for your expected loss, and the capital computation, what we are doing is unexpected loss only. Most of the banks, I think the other day I was actually talking to Siam Bank, I believe, in Siam Bank. They are actually implementing the IRB. In IRB, you are required to compute the expected loss, even RW, all these things. Then they asked me, sir, I think, can we directly, I think, use the provision amount and use it in Basel computations? Absolutely. Now the convergence is almost there. That's what my understanding is. Any other questions, sir?
So I think once again we can thank everyone, and if there are any more questions, feel free to write to us. We are very much with you in this journey. Happy to support you and help you in this journey.
If there are any additional questions, you can actually use our emails or even Q&A portal. We can actually give specific guidance to your banks itself. It need not be a generic question or anything else, and we can provide a high-level guidance. What are the next steps? I think maybe the main objective of this session is to give a guidance on what next steps you can take. That's very important. Theory is fine, but what are the next steps? How you need to proceed with this complex the guidelines? That is the main objective of conducting these sessions. Yes, sir. Suresh.
Yeah. No, thanks. No, that's what I wanted to emphasize. Thanks once again for joining. We look forward to see you again on Saturday, 31st July, for another very interesting topic. Have a nice weekend and have a great day. Stay safe and bye for now.